While the forum, the focus had been greatly on Asia and Europe, the Belt and Road development does not shut out, nor is it directed against any party or country. Though it was initiated by the Chinese President Xi Jinping, its development goes beyond regions, stages of development, and civilizations, he said at the forum. The Carib St. Martin China People Foundation, represented by its founder and president Cengiz Küçük, also attended the forum and had coordinated several side events which I attended during my week's visit. Immediately following the forum, I attended, actually the following day, I attended the Belt and Road Symposium on the Development of Latin America, which was co-organized by the Beijing International Exchange Association for Sustainable Development Committee, the SDC, and the Carib China People Foundation. The intention of that symposium was to share the outcome of the Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation and discuss how to promote the development of the Belt and Road Initiative in Latin America with support from the Caribbean. An international think tank platform was launched at that mini symposium. Discussions were also held with the principles of the Pearl of China, and of course the focus there was on finding solutions on the, in connection with the land issues that they are facing. A proposal for an alternative land accommodation for the project was accepted and will be discussed further in the coming weeks. A delegation from the group will be attending St. Martin. I see a frown, of course, probably because of how I expressed it. One of the difficulties the project has been experiencing is the restrictions that have been placed on the land, and that made it difficult for them to obtain the building permit for the expansion of what was already agreed upon. So it was creating difficulties for them to build the amount of rooms, build the amount of apartments, and with the height restrictions. They try to deal with that by requesting an excavation permit to go lower down, and that would still give them the amount of floors that they would want, but it was still stuck with the expanded amount of rooms, and that has to do with the already approved permits for the project that was coming there before, which was known at the time as the Barbaron Hotel project. We have made an alternative proposal for an alternative location, which of course, no need to question, will not be disclosed at this point in time, but there is an alternative proposal on the table which they accepted, and they will come back to St. Martin in the coming days or weeks ahead for further discussions, but they are very enthusiastic about it, and we look forward to discussions when they come to St. Martin. I also visited with the initiators of the project, with a part of the New Town Development Concept. I visited one of the projects that they have initiated in Beijing, just outside of Beijing, and it was an interesting project because it was something that we were considering here as well in terms of the rebuilding of some of the shanty towns that St. Martin has had, rebuilding some of the more deprived areas in cooperation with the property owners of those areas. What they had done is taken a village and relocated within the village the persons who were living in those deprived homes and and deprived circumstances. You had families living in a home that was way too small for the amount of people living in the facility, and the facilities were inadequate. They have rebuilt a brand new complex with 200 apartments, some with 2, some with 3 bedrooms, some with 1 bedrooms. When I asked if, when the people were moving in, and that was the interesting part of it, the people were not going to move into the new homes. They had relocated them to better homes that they had before, but now they have become owners of the homes. It is something like the development of Mullet Bay in the years gone by with apartment owners. So the persons who were living in the deprived homes are now the owners of the new homes, which will be operated sort of like a hotel complex. They will now be owners of the business. They will also be operators in terms of some of them will find jobs there, whether it's in maintenance, whether it's in security, whether it's in housekeeping, whether it's at the front desk. And so they would have empowered them rather than knocking down the house, building a house, and leaving them still in their circumstances of probably unemployment or underemployment and not earning sufficient income. They would now empower them through this project. It was an interesting one, to say the least. I also visited the Chinese People Association for Friendship with foreign countries, met there, had lunch with them, and also with ambassadors from 2 different countries. During my stay, I also visited the Dongfang Long School, which was a school they have started also in one of the districts. And the aim and objective of the school is to bring the children, keep them in touch with the ancient Chinese traditions, customs, cultural habits. And one of the things that caught my attention, it was like a wow, wow, wow. They also taught some of the children some form of like meditation, where they encourage them and stimulate them and teach them to think like in a 4-dimensional environment. And it was very interesting to see how children would take a flashcard and just by, they're blindfolded and can't see, but would like put it in front of their nose and sort of rub their hands over it and be able to read what's on the flashcard. And to kind of illustrate that it's not a gimmick, I was asked to write a simple word on a blank card, and it was given to one of the children, and I wrote the word love, since they asked to keep it simple and not too complicated. And to my surprise, the child, after just a few seconds of sort of feeling the space, feeling the energy around it, pronounced love, to my surprise, as I said. And then to top it off, a business card was requested. I didn't have one with me at the time, but someone else in the delegation provided a business card, and after rubbing her hand over it for a while, the child read the name of the person on the business card, and then, because they were reading the English side, proceed to sound out the letters, so spell the rest of it, because she could not pronounce it, and spelled it out. And it was truly amazing. The following day I asked if it was a trick or some kind of gimmick, and they said absolutely not. It's a form of meditation to have the person think in a 4-dimensional or navigate in a 4-dimensional sphere. Actually, they said it can be done by everybody possess that, but because of us growing up, you just use the other senses. You know, you look, you feel, you touch, you smell, but that if one is actually trained, that it can be developed. Interestingly, I also visited a Chinese traditional medical doctor, even had a session, and it was interesting. One of these days we'll discuss more about it. And one of the businesses that were at some of the events that I attended, there were people represented different businesses that attended the fora, and this was one that I visited, iSpace. And if you enter the building, you would first think that it's an IT business, but it turns out actually to be a home renovation business. And why I say IT, because you see all the offices with young people sitting behind a desk and sitting behind computers. The marketing division, for instance, had some 20 young people, all of them under the age of 30. And that was the marketing department of the business that is just 3 years old and has now over 6,000 employees. And when I told them, you know, it sounded like the concept of Uber, they said, well, they're actually known as the Uber in home renovations. So what they do, they offer an online service. You go online, you click on the type of renovation you would want, and they give you a standard price. And translated into US dollars, you can, for $100 a square meter, renovate the interior of a home. And to further specify, it would be for $100, if you have a 2-bedroom home, it's 60 square meters or 70 square meters, you would then pay 70 times $100, $7,000. You would get complete new flooring, complete new windows and doors, complete ceiling, kitchen cabinets, a fridge, stove, the tiles, the cabinets, the sinks, the toilet, the shower. So it was an interesting concept started by a relatively young person, and it is growing in China as well. More on the social side, I could not travel for 13 hours from the United States all the way to China and then reach there and return without visiting the Great Wall of China. I conquered 4 of the 8 towers, and that had more to do with the time than the physical ability, and of course a tour of the Forbidden City. And one, you know, when people hear Forbidden City, they would think that it's like, whoa, something wrong is taking place behind there. But it's the home and the palace and the work offices of the former emperors, and it's actually the actual site of the film that was made, The Last Emperor. So all in all, the visit was very successful. Probably in the upcoming days and weeks, more details of specific activities that took place will be further communicated upon. But important for St. Martin is that the whole Belt and Road Forum fits perfectly with the initiative of the Pearl of China, where they are looking at using the St. Martin strategic location in the northeastern Caribbean with a close proximity to both Latin America and the US to further develop and strengthen ties with the region, both people-to-people connections and the development of business opportunities. I presented as well a photo of our harbor. Of course, you select one of those. It was a plaque with a date that we have some 8 ships in our harbor, and also a collage of made up of photos of our exciting airport, the landings, the opportunities for international air traffic and regional connectivity, as well as a photo of one of our busy days in the high season when we have literally some 100 private jets parked at the airport. We are looking at starting promoting St. Martin in China, not on no massive scale, but to begin with by including St. Martin in the website, the official website, that when you, Chinese visitors, Chinese tourists, which are several 100 million per year throughout the world, when you click on the official site, that St. Martin would then show up as one of the places recognized by the Chinese government to visit. So all in all, as I said, it was a very productive and intense one-week visit, and we look forward to the follow-up, particularly as far as the Pearl of China project is concerned. I thank you.
We now go over to the question-answer session. Members of the press is reminded to limit your questions to short, direct queries. The floor is now open for members of the media to ask questions. Bibi Hodge Shaw, SMN News, you have the floor.
Good morning, Marcia. Good morning, ministers. I will start on that end this morning. Minister Emmanuel, a couple of weeks ago, can't remember how long, I asked you about the vacant seat at the GEBE Supervisory Board. And I know this afternoon you have to go to Parliament. And the candidate that was selected to take up the position vacated by now Member of Parliament Romeo Plantaflet was the department head there at VROMI, maintenance head Mr. Claudius Bonkamper. I'm now hearing that Mr. Bonkamper will no longer take that position. Can you tell me the reason and who will replace the candidate? And if this has to do with the LMA, then what will happen with the chairman of that board?
Good morning. Thank you very much for the question. No, it does not have anything to do with the LMA. I believe more that between Bonkamper and myself, and also with the Prime Minister, other position that we was looking for is much more suitable in a discussion that we will need him for more in the future. However, concerning the position, another candidate also has presented himself, and right now we are going through looking at everything for this candidate, and very soon the position will be filled. So it has nothing to do with the LMA, and I know exactly what you're talking about, Article 55 that you mentioned the last time, and I'm going to tell you the same thing that I told you last week, is that I don't know. But a good thing about the Council of Ministers is that we have seniors who are much more experienced because they have went through this process a long time, whether they have been members of parliament for the former Netherlands Antilles or commissioners. So I believe you should probably direct that question to the Prime Minister because he's well versed in these sort of answers. I don't know if it's a conflict of interest because I know where you're going with the question. That's what I asked the last time. And if it is, then probably all civil servants who's on government boards should resign if that is what you're getting at. But I don't know because it have been done for many of years, even before I was around. So I don't know.
With regards to the St. Martin housing development, I understood there are some more situation taking place. There are some other people that came forward with leaky homes, just recent. The last 2 homes that were sold, bad construction, cracked walls, and instead of management dealing with that situation, they're busy sending out letters telling people what repercussions they will face for having pets.
Yeah, I'm aware of that situation and all those, and some of the letters that have been presented to tenants. And the foundation requested a meeting, and we will be taking them up on that opportunity to have a discussion concerning those issues.
Thank you, Minister Emmanuel. Prime Minister Marling, would you mind following up on the question I posed regarding the board members of the Supervisory Board of GEBE and Mr. Bonkamper, as well as civil servants holding key positions on supervisory boards.
You want me to follow up on the question?
He said I should ask you about it because
If civil servants can be on board of government foundations, there are several civil servants who have been and who are still occupying seats on government-owned companies and/or foundations. The different foundations or the different government companies sometimes would have different provisions set aside for them. In one of them, I know, for instance, for a civil servant to sit on that board, the civil servant would need permission from the minister from which, the minister heading the ministry that they are coming from. But not all of them make that provision. So it has been allowed and it is permissible as long as there is no conflict of interest for that person sitting on the board of the company. Yeah, that's all I can say at this point in time.
Thank you, Bibi, for
No,
your...
you're smiling. I don't know if you feel that there is something more to be said. You asked me to clarify whether civil servants can or cannot. Yes, civil servants can.
Bibi, thank you for your question. Alita, the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Marcia. Good morning, ministers. Minister Emmanuel, could you please give an update on the Vida Nova housing project?
Yes. Well, to mention Vida Nova and housing, I know as we speak, they are working on it very, very hard. And I remember the last time the question was asked, I said they should be here probably sometime in May to give an update. I think they're going to be a little bit later than that, but I know for sure that it's being worked on. The last time I spoke to any one of them on the board concerning the whole project, at that same time I called, they were exactly speaking to, I believe, the developer and how they were supposed to be moving forward. That's the latest update that I have thus far.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister Marlin, as of April 30th, the board of the Social Economic Council is shorting 3 members. Could you give an idea of how far along government is with filling those 3 permanent posts?
We have not yet reached to that stage. We are busy because I was away, and prior to that, some other developments had taken place. But I already sent a request on to the Secretary General to update me on the process that needs to be finalized, rather finalized. It states that the persons, their positions expire on, I think, the 1st of May. So the 1st of May have come and gone, so the question was to them as to what is the status. Because sometimes if the time comes and nobody is appointed, then those who are there stay until somebody else is appointed, or will they automatically be reappointed? Those questions have been posed, and we are moving forward from there.
On the Pearl of China project, is it that the location now will be completely abandoned and they're moving to a new location, meaning that the negotiations to get the restrictions removed have not been successful?
The present location allows for construction to begin immediately. They can begin constructions immediately as long as they remain within the parameters of the approved planning permit that was given for that location. The challenge that they are facing is the restrictions, is based on the restrictions that are in place. So if you want to deviate from the restrictions, if you want to go outside of the approvals, then certain things need to take place to make that happen. If they choose to build on that location in accordance with the approved parameters, then there is no problem. We have, however, discussed an alternative location which will facilitate the project moving forward. At this point in time, I will not disclose the location. I will not disclose either the conditions under which those discussions are taking place, but it's just to let people know that the Pearl of China is not off the books, has not been abandoned, and did not hit, into the proverbial brick wall. Yes, it has stumbled its toe on a rock, but that will be overcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alita, for your question. We move over now to the second round of questions. Bibi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marsha. Minister Lee, we are approaching the rainy season. There's a lot of mosquitoes. Are we going to have fogging this year, or we are going to go back to the Google trap idea that was used last year?
Again, I know people feel good seeing trucks driving around spraying chemicals all over the place, but the fact is that fogging has shown to have limited effectiveness. So the same as last year, when appropriate, so in certain circumstances it makes sense to fog. The Department of CPS is on top of it. They're working on their prevention program. As you know, we launched this mosquito squad with the schools, trying to reduce the breeding grounds, but it also goes much broader than that. It's by educating the children, we hope that they take that knowledge home as well and impart that knowledge to their parents and family members. So the focus is still very much on trying to eliminate or reduce breeding sites. That's always been shown to be the most effective, and complemented by the lethal OV traps or fogging or whatever works best. But what we've seen last year, unfortunately, what seems to work the best is really a door-to-door campaign, going from house to house and explaining to people what they should or should not do. So, and I'm sure we'll do a mixture of all of the above.
Regarding the new hospital, SZV, I've gotten some information whereby KPMG, the one that organized this bidding, cut short by doing a lot of things to secure financing for this hospital, and SZV is paying KPMG almost $100,000 a month for consultation. SZV falls under your ministry. They are piloting, they're coordinating the hospital project. Can you tell us if they are going to secure financing, and how long more will they be collecting this amount of money from SZV?
I'm not aware of what the contract amounts that KPMG is being paid. You're correct that KPMG, since before my time as minister, has already been project leader for this project. I would say that I believe that the efforts, the work that KPMG is doing is very much front-loaded. In other words, designing the terms of reference, managing the bidding process, securing financing. So I would expect that once the financing's secured and the project moves into its execution phase, that the role of KPMG would diminish, and therefore their time spent and money spent would diminish as well. In terms of financing, I'm hoping, we're working very hard on that. We're hoping sometime by July, August to have all of the financing secured. But so far, preliminary discussions are going well, and I'm optimistic that we will have the financing soon. The design process for the hospital is continuing. I'm not completely up to date on what stage it's at, but I do know that there's a consultative process to that design process, so meaning that once the developers have come to a certain stage with the drawings, the idea is for them to have a consultation process with hospital management, staff, stakeholders, to make sure that everyone's on board with the design and looking at patient flows and efficiency. So the project is moving ahead.
All right, my last question to you, Minister Lee, and I'd like for you to listen correctly so that you will get a sense of what I'm asking you.
I always listen carefully, Bibi.
Yes, so I'm asking you to just focus on this one. In prior press conferences, you've said that the Inspectorate and SMMC has had a difference of opinion, and this is the reason you hired an independent consultant to do a baseline study or whatever research they did. I asked you last week for the conclusion on the report you received from this independent consultant you hired. I want to know exactly what this consultant found different from the inspectorate, notwithstanding that you paid 14,000 euros to somebody to come and do this. Tell us if there is something
Can you give the
different.
minister a chance to answer the question, and we are pressed for time? Minister?
Look, I've explained that the consultant has produced a report. His report is of a different nature than the inspectorate's report. The inspectorate has his tasks in terms of, let's say, a more technical inspection. The report that we've received is focused more on processes, on structure, and I would say that in the end that they are complementary to each other, meaning that the findings, for example, from 2012. So when you find a technical issue, that technical issue is usually rooted in some sort of an operational process. This goes for government as well. If you find that something isn't happening technically or specifically correctly, usually it's because there's some sort of a operational, structural issue, right? So you cannot compare the two reports exactly. I would say that they are not conflicting in terms of the report gives suggestions to how to improve structure and quality. And I'm happy with the report. I think it lays a great basis for discussion. Those discussions have started already. And I believe our goal is, the ministry's goal, is if we are going to improve the healthcare system of St. Martin, everyone needs to work together, from public health to the inspectorate, to the minister, to the hospital, to the family doctors, to SZV. The report gives us an excellent basis to bring everybody to the table, to have those conversations, and the outcomes thus far, the discussions thus far, have been very positive. Everyone is finally talking to each other. So I'm happy with the results, Bibi. Is that detailed enough? Did I listen carefully? I think so.
Thank
I
you.
think so.
Thank you, Minister Lee. At this point in time, we come to the closing of the live press briefing for this Wednesday. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, television viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for Wednesday, May 24, 2017.